Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering Arena video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about MTG Arena on mobile and my review of it. So for those of you who don't know, just last week, MTG Arena launched on iOS and officially launched on Android. Before, it was an open beta that allowed some very high-end Android devices to play the game. Then they released it, and now most iOS devices can play it, and even more Android devices can play it. So what is the game like? In this video, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on it, where it could maybe improve, where it's exceeded my expectations. We're going to talk about all of that. So let's start off with expectations. Going into this, I thought it was going to be a disaster. I mean, look at the PC client, and even worse, look at the Mac client. The Mac client is riddled with bugs and, still has some game-breaking bugs that have existed since its launch. And I'm like, oh, geez, we're moving from still high-powered systems to still high-powered systems. What is this going to look like when we go to mobile? But going to mobile, my expectations were completely blown away. I was expecting a buggy, lag-filled experience. Now, I do want to say before I jump into this is all my experience on the iOS version on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So it is the newest generation of iPhone, so I can't speak for everyone, but I can talk a little bit about lower-end devices because I have some friends who also have played on mobile on lower-end devices and had a pretty good experience. But going into this, my expectations were quite low. I was going to be happy if I could play one game without experiencing some sort of issue, but honestly, I found myself sitting in front of my computer playing on my phone. It is just such a seamless and wonderful experience, and it works so beautifully. I have not encountered a single bug, and I've been playing it pretty much constantly since its release. There are little things, sometimes it's a little hard to get into the game, but outside of that, it has been pretty flawless, and I was expecting constant disconnects, trouble reading cards. The way they've changed the game so that it works better on mobile is just wonderful. The user interface works pretty well. Just everything about it seems to work. Of course, I do have a couple issues. For instance, the fact that you can't enter promo codes. That's a little bit annoying, but there are ways around it, and I may make a video covering that. And the fact that you can only purchase certain gem bundles is also a little bit annoying. But honestly, those are very easy to overlook when you see how great the finished result ended up. I mean, when it was first released, I know there were a lot of issues with it, but I remember people overall being pretty positive about it, and that got me excited. And of course, I may have had a different experience on Android compared to iOS, but I was expecting iOS to also release kind of on a beta. I mean, it seems like Wizards of the Coast likes to release things quote-unquote in beta, when really they're just finished software that have some bugs. Which, I mean, I guess you could argue is what a beta is, but I was expecting it to, launch on iOS and then a couple months later launch fully. That way they can come up with excuses for bugs, but it didn't happen. I mean, I have been just utterly blown away. They've also kept the animations, they've kept, pets, they've kept pretty much everything that you can get in the main game and managed to make it really, really, really awesome. There are a couple finicky things, like seeing how many cards in your graveyard and in your library, that it's a little less intuitive than what it is on the PC client, but overall, my experience has been positive. I've encountered very few issues. Learning the new way to control the game has been very quick, very intuitive, very, very awesome. Little things like I prefer building decks on the PC version. I think that just makes sense. You get a bigger screen, you can look at more, but playing the game has been wonderful. Also, when playing on cellular, I haven't had any issues with disconnects, and again, that may vary based on your phone and your coverage, but overall, good experience. Now, you've heard me tell you it's a good experience for a while. Where do I think they need to improve? Well, going into it, I think one of the big barriers for entry is the specs. On iOS, you pretty much need something that runs the latest version of iOS, which is actually a pretty big margin. Unlike Android, which drops your software updates after 2 or 3 years, the iOS 14 is it iOS 14? The newest version of iOS, sorry, is still supporting phones all the way back to like the 7. So yeah, I have a friend who has the iPhone 7 and they were able to play Arena and it actually worked better than their computer version. So even a phone that is many, many years old is still able to run the game really, really well. He's talked about how it has consistently worked and it does slow down in complex board states, which I think is to be expected, but for your normal playing, it's really good. Now, one thing I do recommend is that you do not do limited events on mobile if you can avoid it, or if you do it on Wi-Fi. Right now, you do have the risk of disconnecting. I've had it happen a whole one time, and that was my fault. But just keep that in mind that if you are, playing a limited event, you could get a loss due to a disconnect, and you may be able to get a refund for the draft or sealed event, but it's not guaranteed. So yeah, I would say be careful with that. In terms of improvement, I would just love to see little, small things changed. I mean, on, for instance, tablet, because I also played on tablet, some things just didn't make too much sense for the aspect ratio. Like, for instance, because, a lot of tablets are nearing the size of computers, I feel like you should be able to kind of readjust things. For instance, the hand folding together where you can't really see what cards you have. That's really nice on mobile, unlike an iPhone, but it is a little bit disappointing on iPad and tablets that it's still folding up, even though I have plenty of space to leave it unfolded. And that kind of leads me to my big thing here is I kind of wish there was a little bit more control over how changed things are. For instance, on my phone I have the 12 Pro Max. It's a pretty big phone. I would love if I could enable an option to leave the cards on folded out and then press a button to kind of hide them temporarily rather than having to press a button to extend them. I think it would make a lot more sense for me, but I understand that some smaller phones that wouldn't really ever be a good thing. And so I just think more options like the ability to have the cards constantly showing would be really, really nice. But of course, those are the small little things that'll come in time. They've built a strong foundation and we just have to hope that it doesn't get bug filled like the PC version often does, where it'll go through periods of really good things and then it'll sink down and then really good and then sink down. So we really have to wait and see. Overall, I think they've done a pretty good job with this. I'm glad they delayed it to make sure that it met their quality standards, because if they would have released this last year, I have a feeling it would have been much more bug-filled. And that's kind of the thing with a mobile game that you have to think about is on PC, a player is much more willing to say, there's a buggy update, I'll just wait for the next one, because people who are playing games on their PC or on their Mac are much more likely to be invested in that game or just gaming in general. But there are going to be a lot of players who pick up MTG Arena who are just mobile gamers, and they're going to load the app, realize it doesn't work, and then next time they see that app, they're going to be like, well, that's the one that doesn't work. And so it's really good to start off on the right foot here, and I'm really glad they did that. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. I know I didn't do too much. I just kind of talked about how awesome it is, and I just feel like it's really important that when Wizards of the Coast and MTG Arena does something good, we tell them that it's good. A lot of the time they just hear what's bad and then kind of are neutral towards the good things, but I think this was a really, really awesome choice, and it was done very, very well, and so I'm glad we are getting to see the benefits of that. Either way, like I said, hit that like button, subscribe to see more content like this. I will see you in the next video. Bye.